edition of the Good and Plenty podcast, and I'm joined by Creighton head coach Greg McDermott, and this looks very professional. First of all, you look way more professional. You got a microphone. I mean, come on, what's going on? We're in the pandemic here. I expected you to be in your basement, golf clubs in hand, and look at you. You completely outdo me.
Well, when you surround yourself by good people that are smarter than you, then you're able to look a little bit more professional than you really are.
So over under on the amount of rounds you played of golf during the pandemic. I'm going with 50.
Significantly over.
Wow.
You know, we had good weather in March and April here. So, and you know, when we got shut down at the Big East tournament, when the game got called at halftime, you know, before they shut down any airlines, I jumped on a plane to Arizona for a couple weeks. So I was able to get a bunch in. So, you know, it's one of my hobbies that I really enjoy. And fortunately through this pandemic, it was one of the few things you could actually do. But I will say that the theory that if I could just play more golf, I'd be better. It does not hold true. It is not true. It doesn't matter how much I play.
Is your son good? Is Doug, like, what, when you guys go out there, who's better? I just
saw him a couple days this week, and his handicap is slightly better than mine. But some of his money is in my pocket after those 2 days of golf. So
like, what will you bet? I mean,
I'm probably a little mentally stronger than he is.
Well, we know that. What will you guys gamble? I mean, does it really matter anymore? Like how you? I mean, he makes more than you now.
He does. Really, the amount is insignificant. It's just who has to pay who, and how painful that is when that happens. So we have a good time with it. My oldest son Nick plays a bunch too, so it's a great way to spend some family time.
You don't get Teresa out there with you?
She does not play golf, which is probably a good thing, and Sydney doesn't either. So it's pretty much just the guys.
So I've heard, according to my sources, that the other thing that you've spent a lot of time with over the pandemic is your grilling game, trying to really up your grilling game. And I don't know if you're going to be, cooking at the Drover anytime soon here, but how's that going?
I enjoy throwing some food on the smoker. I enjoy the grill. And again, a lot of restaurants were closed during the pandemic, so it gave us something to try and to do. And Doug was back here a bunch, as were all three of our kids. So, I think Doug even learned to cook a little bit, which is that's really incredible when you think about that. But, it's something that's fun to do, and I enjoyed it, and a good way to kill some time.
Yeah, I'm pretty limited with my cooking abilities. I can, hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken, maybe some salmon.
Got to keep it simple.
Yeah, got to keep it simple. Got to keep it simple. So practice starts this week. Crazy. We're finally kind of here at a point where we feel like basketball is around the corner. NBA over now. We got 45 days from when we're taping this to when the season is supposed to start on November 25th. What's it going to be like this week with practice starting up, do you think?
Well, fortunately, the NCAA gave us that window of, 3 weeks where we could gradually kind of gear the guys up and get them back on the practice floor. And the reality of it is, many of our guys played very little to no 5-on-5 from the middle of March until a couple of weeks ago. So, trying to get that timing back and just get them to feel like they're back in a groove a little bit, and just the conditioning part of it, because, had we had them here all summer, they're playing 5-on-5, they're playing pickup games 4 or 5 days a week. When you take that away, it really takes some time to get some of that back. So that'll be really the early part of practice. Let's make sure they're in shape. Let's make sure their bodies are right. Let's gradually introduce the full court part of it. It's a big part of what we do and the speed with which we do it. But these 3 weeks have given us at least an opportunity to gradually, have some things that we've been able to give to them. And the older guys are doing a great job trying to help the new guys fit in as quickly as possible.
What worries you the most about the season? Is it the contact tracing part of all this, that if somebody gets COVID, they're out 14 days, but you can't necessarily test out of quarantine if if you've been around that person who tested positive?
Well, I mean, the current recommendations are if somebody tests positive, your whole really tier 1 group shuts down for 14 days. And I don't think a season is realistic if we have to follow those protocols. I think it's just going to be very difficult because as we're seeing, I think, people get it, and some people get sicker than others. But that's going to be very difficult because in basketball, Jeff, as you know, we're not just sitting out 2 weeks. We can't sit out 2 weeks and play a game the next Tuesday. There's going to be some time that you're going to have to ramp that back up. So, my charge with the Big East and with our administration, we have to get to 13 games as soon as we possibly can. We've got to get to the minimum number of games to make sure you qualify for the NCAA tournament in case some crazy things happen. And, sometimes you can do everything right and your 2 opponents are shut down. And then who do you play? And I think you have to be able to adapt. You have to be flexible. I'm hopeful that across the country, if some teams are shut down across other leagues and, we can't play because Seton Hall and Providence is shut down and Kansas State can't play because they're supposed to play Texas Tech and Texas. Can we play Kansas State that week? I hope that there'll be some flexibility to allow us to do that. Let's just try to get games in. Let's have these guys have as normal of season as we possibly can in some really abnormal times.
Yeah, I mean, listen, adapt is got to be the biggest word of the season to me is who cares who you play, where you play them as the season goes on. It's just play games. Do it for the kids as much as anything else and for a sense of normalcy. You've got a good team, though. I mean, you had a hell of a team last year. You got a team that I don't know if people realize could be as good, if not better, despite losing Tyshawn Alexander, because you've got bigs now. I mean, what's it like to actually have big men again?
Yeah, it's been great. And, having said that, Christian Bishop and Calvin Jones were terrific last year. And when we went to the small ball lineup with Mahoney or Jefferson at the 5, we had a lot of success. But, we're going to miss Tyshawn. You take for granted the offensive numbers, the assist to turnover and, his efficiency offensively. But, what he was able to do defensively really was to take the other team's best perimeter player out of the game and make it very difficult on him. And somebody's going to have to embrace that role. I think Denzel Mahoney's hungry to do it. I think Damian Jefferson can help us there. I think Markus Zagarowski can take some of that load as well. But, I like this team and we have a lot of pieces back. Jacob Epperson is back on the practice floor, doing some really good things. And, I think Ryan Kalkbrenner, the freshman from St. Louis, has a chance to really have an impact on this year's team. So we have some depth in the front line that we didn't have last year that hopefully can provide a little rim protection on the back of that defense.
Yeah, I've heard Kalkbrenner's been pretty impressive so far from a few people around there. What's his game like, and how do you see his role being this year?
Well, he reminds me a lot, Jeff, of Brook Lopez. I mean, that's kind of how he moves, big guy, really, legit 7-footer, but skilled, can step out and shoot the basketball, and is very skilled in the post. Right hand, left shoulder, right shoulder, doesn't make any difference. And now it's just a matter of the speed of the game, especially for us, is much different than the high school level. Him getting accustomed to playing with that pace and that speed, making some of the reads on the perimeter when we pop him to the top of the floor. But, we're going to have to throw it to him some in the block too, because he's very crafty when he catches it down there. And, it's going to be a nice piece for us to be able to rotate him and Jacob and Christian and maybe move Christian to the 4 some. Some possibilities that didn't exist last year are certainly there for the taking this year.
So I have to admit, and you don't need to tell Mandy and Zach this, but I never thought I'd put Markus Zagarowski as a preseason first-team All-American. But I think that's where I'm leaning towards going right now. I remember seeing him shoot maybe his – I don't know, it was sophomore year of high school when he came and he played Newburyport High School, and thinking good little player, nice player. But I did never see this type of progression. What have you seen since you first laid eyes on him to now that's enabled him to get to this point?
Well, I think the first time I watched him, I think my feeling was probably similar to yours. This kid really knows how to play the game. And then you watch another game and you watch another game and you realize how much he impacts winning. and how he has his fingerprints all over a game. And, that's what became impressive to me, watching his AAU team and the success that they were able to have. He made other guys better, yet he could hit the big shot at the big time, or make the right play or the right read at that time. So it's been fun to watch him. He's a perfectionist by nature. He's really, really hard on himself. And that's something that we're trying to work through, because he has to kind of get past that and move on to the next play quicker. But it's also what's made him great. So it's a fine line that we walk, trying to get him just to be a little bit less hard on himself, play the game, play it with joy. But he scores at all three levels. He's a great leader. He sees the floor. He really fits our up-tempo system because of the plays that he can make in transition. And, as having gotten to know the family, he's just delightful to coach. He's one of those guys that you wish you'd have on your team every year because he's that much fun to be around.
100%. Is he back? I know he told me months ago that he thought he was going to be better than, because he's dealt with some injuries that have kind of been nagging over the last couple of years, and the knee injury, getting that cleaned up. How does he look?
I think his body feels better than it ever has. So I think physically, he's in as good a place as he's ever been. Now it's just a matter, and I've explained to Marcus, when you miss 4 months, you don't come back and play like you were playing in March. It's just going to take some time to get your timing back, to get your feel back, and then you add to it the inability to play 5-on-5 when he did get back and get healthy. So it's going to be a process, and he's got to trust his teammates like he always has. And, I think he'll be playing his best basketball when we make the turn, probably to 2021. I think it's going to take him some live game action to get back to where he was. But the body's great. He's really put on some significant strength that I think is going to help him on both ends of the floor.
Give me your favorite memory coaching your kid, coaching Doug. And then give me the story that's never been told, if there is one, of when you guys just went at it about something, whether it's a play call, something, because I know your relationship, and he's so easygoing. You know where I stand with him. One of my favorite kids, maybe the favorite kid I ever covered doing this. But there's got to be something there where you guys just went at it, right?
There were times, certainly, and I think his freshman year, that was difficult for him because obviously I've gone from his father's voice to his coach's voice, and it's different. But we had a couple times. There was an ESPN game against Wichita State one year where I really got after him in a timeout, face to face, and my wife didn't really want to have much to do with me when I got home that night. But, it was a great experience, as you know, Jeff, and I wish a lot of people could experience what I was able to experience. I think, looking back at the positive things, certainly NBA draft night was something that, you'll never forget. But, I think going to that first NCAA tournament together, winning that Missouri Valley Conference championship when he was a sophomore, going back to the NCAA tournament, having your son as part of the team is something that's pretty cool. But, as I look back on it now, he scored a ton of points, over 3,000 points. And, I got to be part of all those games, all those practices. And, and now that he's in the NBA, now we can have those basketball talks that we didn't really have when he was in college, because you're not going to call your coach about something, he'd had enough of me in practice. But now we can talk basketball. Talk how he's playing, where does he fit, what's he got to get better at, how do I best adjust to, a different coach or a different team, which has happened to him several times throughout his career. So, it's a fun relationship, and obviously we both love basketball. So, that part of it's been really neat from a father-son perspective.
Is it crazy to think where you were like 10 years ago and where you are now, and what Creighton has been able to allow you in terms of the success you've had, the almost peace of mind you've had to coach the way you want to recruit the type of kids you want to recruit?
Yeah. We had we obviously we were successful at Northern Iowa, and we didn't get the job done at Iowa State the way that I wanted to. I think we left it in a better spot than when we got there. There were a lot of things behind the scenes that kind of had to be cleaned up, and obviously when Fred took over, he did an unbelievable job. But Creighton has really fit me, and Bruce Rasmussen is terrific. I think one of the best athletic directors in the country, and his vision. As we sit in this beautiful practice facility, this is something that was designed before we were even thinking about going to the Big East. And now we have one of the top facilities in the country, and we're in a great basketball conference, basketball centric conference. So it's really become home for us, and that's been fun. And as I've had a change in my coaching philosophy during my time at Creighton. And that was hard for me at first, because you kind of have to let go of some things that you felt have worked for you in the past and kind of explore this newness in the game that you really haven't tinkered with very much. But it was also fun. And I think it was rejuvenating to talk to some people that play the way that we play, get new ideas, and then kind of formulate a new philosophy of how you want this to look and the pieces that you have to bring on board to make it happen. And it's been a lot of fun for us, and I've had a lot of great assistants that have worked with me during that time, which has made it really, really enjoyable. But we're hopeful that we've brought some value to the Big East, and certainly the Big East has brought value to Creighton and helped, I think, promote our program on a national basis in a way that we weren't able to do prior to us entering this league.
Do you remember what it was or who it was that actually enabled you to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna change kind of how I go about, whether it's a system or whatnot. Was it something specific? Somebody?
Yeah, it really was the first year at Creighton. We ended up playing, I think, in the CBI, and we got beat in the first round of the Big East, or the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. And we had 10 days before we played. So I had a very senior-laden team, Caleb Corver and Daryl Ashford, Wayne Runnels, Kenny Lawson, Casey Harriman. And then I had a bunch of young guys. That was Doug's freshman class with Jaw Hands. Grant had transferred in. Ethan Rogge was young. So we had to figure out something to do those 10 days. So we set it up like a 7-game NBA series. And we took the older guys on one team, and then we played some of the red shirts and younger guys on the other team. And we allowed that team to just play fast. Antoine Young was on that team, I believe he was a junior at the time, as a point guard. And once we got going up and down and seeing what Doug and Ethan and Grant, Jaw Hands, how they were functioning in the full court, Gregory Echenike had just become eligible then. We really liked what we saw. And then it was almost fate. In our second game, we played Davison and Coach McKillop. And I think the score at halftime was 54-48. And we couldn't stop them. And we ended up winning 102-94, 96. But their spacing was impeccable. The way they used their bigs in transition and attacked you, make or miss every single time. So that really got it started. And that game for me came at the perfect time to see what you could do with maybe, not a bunch of guys that can touch the top of the square, but guys that really know how to play the game of basketball, how you can play with pace and play fast and be successful. And to be honest, Jeff, the more I got into it, it was really fun for me to coach. It's a fun system to play. It's a fun style to play. I think most players will tell you, if you ask them how you want to play fast, they'll say they want to play fast. I don't think many understand how hard it is to play fast, to do it consistently, to have the impact that you want it to have in the game. You've got to do it every time. And I think those are some of the lessons I took from Coach McKillop and watching film of his teams play. And then we've just kind of built it to fit our personnel and our system, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's interesting. I never heard you tell that story before, of kind of that run in Davidson, and I didn't know that. So interesting.
It just ended up being a perfect storm the way.
Yeah, well, you could try it. Like you said, you could try it, certainly, watching in that event. What's the latest on Big East right now? I mean, we're kind of waiting, right? And I had heard these rumors that there might be some sort of bubble months ago in Omaha. They might do 2 different sites. What's the latest from what you're hearing on how the Big East is going to do their schedule?
Well, I think they're close to coming up with some sort of schedule, at least for December. And, as we talked about earlier, I think everybody's probably agrees we need to play as many games as we can, as fast as we can. Most of our campuses are going to be empty for the month of December and a good portion of January. Let's try to get as many games in as we possibly can during that time, where you essentially have kind of created a small bubble on your own campus because nobody else is here. I think the bubble possibility, I think you're foolish if you don't prepare for something like that in case things go a different direction, and it's the only way to get games in. And I think our league is doing a good job of preparing for something like that. Should we need to do it, I think us coaches are probably in agreement that we would like to think that that's a last resort. Let's try to play some on campus and see how that goes. But I think you have to have that as part of your playbook to try to get the season in, because we have some really good teams in this league this season.
How many games do you have right now locked in? I know you got the deal out at South Dakota, right? You got that one. You're going to go visit Mount Rushmore, take your kids there while you're over there?
No. Well, you don't know your geography, because Sioux Falls to Rapid City, South Dakota, it's not like you're just walking across the street. It's a half a day drive, Jeff. And if you'd come and visit the Midwest and the upper Midwest a little more often and get out of your little, world there on the East Coast, you would realize there's some great things here. But, we have 3 games there. We are going to go to Kansas for sure. I talked to Coach Self last week, and I think we have that worked out, that we will play a game there, I believe, on December 8th. And then we're just working on getting a couple home games, and then Coach Hoiberg and I are in discussions on how are we going to play our game with likely the Big Ten and the Big East starting in December when we usually play that game. So it's trying to find a spot for it that'll work for both teams. But then now you're to your 7 and you have 20 league games and away you go. So, there's not a lot of flexibility, but, I like the fact that I have an experienced team. I would hope will handle that better than some others.
Yeah, I think, and I've done this when I've ranked in the preseason, the teams that bring back a ton of players like you guys, like Villanova, like Baylor, Gonzaga, are going to have a major advantage this year, aren't you?
Well, I think experience always matters in college basketball, and I don't think that's ever been in question. And you see teams that have guys that have been around and been in their system, and it just makes it so much easier. I think this year, because this year is so different, I think it's very, very important, to your point. And, that's been kind of our mantra this year, is like, it's going to be different. There's going to be interruptions. We have to do different better than everybody else. And we have to be able to adjust to the things that are going to come our way. And, hopefully our guys are mature enough to do that.
Here's one that people have asked me that I don't even know how to answer yet. And you may not have an answer on this yet. Are fans going to be allowed into the arena? Do you have any idea yet how that's going to play out to start the season and as we go along?
There's so many layers to that, and I think we're in the middle of that. First, it has to be allowed where, in the county that you live in, and I think for us it is. Now it's a matter of how many can we, effectively make sure we have social distancing. How do people get into the game? How do they get out of the game? There's a lot of planning that goes into that, and then you have to have the blessing of your conference and of your university. So I think there are places where there won't be any fans, and I think there are some that hopefully can try it and see how it goes. And I'd like to think that we could be one of them. But having said all that, you have to, obviously our players and staff safety is paramount, and then you have to pivot to, fans are going to want to come to the game, but you also want to make sure you're providing them a safe environment as well. So, there's a lot of check marks that have to be checked before that happens. I think, football, even though it's outdoors, I think having some games on TV and people getting more comfortable, understanding, try to wear masks the best you can in those environments, I think that all helps. So, I'm hopeful that we'll at least be able to play in front of a few fans.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I should go, where I can go, for it to start. Like Mohegan Sun's 2 hours from me, so I don't have to get on a plane to go there. Do I go to Orlando? Do I go see, South Dakota, and you could take me on a little trip there of, what's in the Midwest. I don't know.
Well, there will be fans. I know I think there'll be 300 or 400 per school. At least that's the plan right now for the event in Sioux Falls. And the Sanford Health people will do a great job up there. Obviously, it's a huge medical hospital organization that's putting it on. So, safety will be first and foremost. But we're playing in a wonderful facility in the Pentagon, and I think it'll be obviously it's a great event. There's some good teams in it.
Hey, circling back to the very first question I had to you on your golf game, I was thinking, who's the best golfer of any college basketball coach in America?
Oh man, there's some good ones.
Really good that we don't know about out there.
Dan Marley's a great player, and he's not in college basketball now, but he was for a long time. But he's a scratch golfer. Steve Alford's a good player. There's some good ones. Ricardo Patton used to play with him a little bit. He's a really good player. Doc Sadler sucks. He's not near as good as he thinks he is. I think there's a lot of guys that like to play the game and enjoy the game.
Well, listen, I appreciate you jumping on. I do. I hope all is well. I hope you guys can get going with practice here this week and kind of return to some sense of normalcy. I know you already have a little bit. And I think as we get closer here, we just need everybody to kind of have their schedules in place in the next couple of weeks, be back practicing, and, listen, get to November 25th.
Yeah. And, that's our hope. Let's get there. Let's start playing some games. And, and I think once the games start, I think that's even more motivation for our team to make sure you're doing all the right things when you're not in our facility. It's easy to control what's going on here. College students, when you leave the walls of this building and you're out on campus with other students and in the community with other students, that's where a problem can arise. So hopefully, as we get closer to those games, there'll be even more motivation to make sure we're doing the right things, and hopefully we can have a great season.
All right. Well, next podcast we'll do. Your son was working out, so he was unable to surprise you and pop on and tell a few stories, ripping on you. But next one, I'll have to coordinate it a little better.
Yeah, he enjoys that. He's good at that, but he needs to be back in the gym, so that's good to hear.
He's in the gym shooting the ball, and what he needs is a haircut. That's what he needs.
You are right there. I think there's maybe been one slight trim since the middle of January. So
I don't know how Teresa let him go out on national TV with that haircut.
He thinks it's pretty cool, but I don't know. He quit listening to me a long time ago.
Yes, well, that's happening right now with my daughter. Trust me, at 17 years old, man, you get that. They know everything, and she's had her license for a month, and you can't tell her anything about what she's doing wrong. None of it.
No, that's the beauty of those teenage years. And sometimes when they get to 23 or 24, they'll come back and look at you and say, you weren't as dumb as I thought you were all those years. Right. But that's about as close to a compliment as you're going to get.
Well, listen, thanks for jumping on again. We'll talk soon, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you at some point this year.
Always great to catch up, Jeff.
You got it. Thanks, Craig.